Hey, hi, hello. Welcome to episode 97 of Trail Society, produced by Free Trail, brought to you by our friends over at Rabbit. I'm Corrine Malcolm.
I'm Keely Henninger.
And I'm Hillary Allen.
And everyone has had a whirlwind couple of weeks. I've been home actually. It's been quite nice. I'm looking at a busier April, which is a little bit scary, but we're doing it. We're doing it. We're doing it. We're doing it. Before we hit record, Hillary and I were catching up a little bit because she's been bebopping around. She was in Seattle for like 28 hours and then was in London for like 48 hours and then I believe is now back home in Colorado. So, Hillary, tell us a little bit about your I was saying, where in the world is Hillary San Diego?
I know, I love that game. Seriously, it's like my theme song music. Um, uh, yeah, so I was at Corinne's home for, a day and a half
Oh,
and for Brooks Trail Camp. So that was awesome. The team's expanding and it was really good to spend some time with them running over in Issaquah and then at the headquarters. And like looking at like I did some shoe testing, like it was like so jam-packed. And then yeah, I flew over to London overnight and then I hit the ground running there literally. I've been working with this really cool company out of San Francisco that's called 50 Years, and they basically are equipping engineers and scientists to become entrepreneurs and encouraging to take their groundbreaking research and science out of the lab and to start companies. And yeah, I got to lead some mindset and like workshops, and I led a talk and just got to geek out with amazing scientists in London because they basically started a chapter over there, got a bunch of government funding, which is really exciting to, fund the cutting edge research in science. So I'm just feeling very happy. And I got to like run around Hyde Park and Buckingham Palace and
Oh,
run with
beautiful.
some scientists. And I ran with some people who ran their like distance PRs on our morning runs. So that was super cool. Yeah. And now I know I'm back physically in Colorado, but I still really don't know what time zone I'm in.
Yeah, that's time zone whiplash is a real thing and you are in the midst of it. Keely, you've got maybe spring break to school whiplash going on. You were just in the Bay Area. In trails that we actually all really love over in Northern Marin. You got to do some mountain biking with some homies and JT. How is it to get a little break from Portland and do something a little different?
oh my gosh, it was so amazing. Me and JT got back and we're like, we need to go on breaks every time I have a break. Yeah, we hadn't gone on one since I started school just because it was like head down, didn't really know what to expect. And I've been getting a lot of like adventure itch just to be like, no, we need to go do something that brings us a lot of joy. And so it was so lovely to actually just not do any school for an entire week. I actually like adamantly did not let myself. And so it was amazing. We got really good weather. We had 70 degrees. We got some dry dirt. Jeff, my friend, Jeff Stern, he took us on some like really cool mountain bike rides that I'd never been on. And so it was just really fun. We'd been craving a lot of dry dirt because we don't mountain bike in the winter here. We're not that hardcore. And so it was absolutely lovely. Got back and I was like actually excited to start studying again. Although I will say I definitely was on a bit of a like whiplash, like you said, because I could not concentrate on Saturday, Sunday. I had to take actual breaks after like 2 hours of studying, whereas normally I'm pretty good at just kind of hammering through. But now I feel like I'm slowly getting back on the grind and back to my normal ability to concentrate, which is nice. So it was much needed break.
Yeah, I believe it. It's Steve and I talk about that a little bit, and we're further along, obviously. He's been through 4 years of medical school. We're now almost through year three of residency. And this year's been a little interesting. Like getting out on those breaks is super, super important when he's got a number of days off in a row or a week off in a row or actual vacation time. But there have also been moments where maybe he's got like a 3 day weekend. And historically, we'd be like, we're going to the mountains. 3 days, we got it. Let's go. We're out. Like we like leave immediately. And now it's like, ooh, actually, we're kind of on the hamster wheel. So like we've like done some like slow Sundays and like slept in and like gone for a run at like 11 a.m. And that's also been really nice. So you'll
Yeah.
find the balance of like piecing out and taking complete advantage of that time and like really like unplugging. And then you'll also find times where you're like, cool, it's actually like I've been on the hamster wheel and it's time to like just take a weekend and exhale.
Yeah, totally. Especially when it's just that maybe 3 day time frame. It's really hard to feel like you're gonna get a lot of adventure in that short of amount of time after being on the hamster wheel for like maybe a month at a time.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. How's work balance for you though, Corinne? I feel like you're what, 4 months into kind of balancing a new job plus running plus your old jobs, many hats. Corinne, how's that feeling?
It's been really good. I like people keep asking me this, which is good. I've got really good friends that are checking in on me because yeah, I've been working for Hoka now in this kind of part-time capacity over the last 4 months, and it's honestly just like really exciting. It's not so overwhelming. It's not a full-time job right now. Like the goal is that it could become that over the next like year and a half or so. Um, but what it does mean is that I'm getting to touch a bunch of the sport from a different direction than I had never had before. Like I do all the commentary at Western States and I'm in charge of all this like random panels and talks and this kind of stuff. And now I'm seeing all the race production and event production from the other
Mhm.
side of it, like hands on the, weekly meetings about, canyons is coming up, Desert Rats is right around the corner, literally. Western States is all too soon, it turns out. So working on all of that from the title sponsor side is really fascinating as far as
Mhm.
what goes into making those tiny activations make sense. All the little touches that you probably don't even notice at these big races. Like I have been on the calls about all of that stuff, and I'm learning a new language. I feel I know all sorts of acronyms now, which is really fun and exciting. But it's been really good. We just pitched a huge project that will center around Kodiak in the fall, and it seems like it's a go. So we're working on the budget for that right now, and that will be bringing more women, more first-time trail runners, more women of color to Kodiak, which is very excited. So um, we'll get to share more about that as we dive into the like summer season, but it's been good. It's a new fun brain stimulus.
That's great.
And then I'm like trying to run, which is also like happening. I went to the Cowgill Wednesday morning workout yesterday, and that was actually
Fun.
awesome.
Nice.
I think I need that. I need the like, I shy away from group runs because I think they can be intimidating
Hmm.
and kind of scary. And I like to run easy runs easy, and I hate getting dropped and just it feels bad. Like it just feels bad when you're like on an easy endurance run and you like can't keep up. And it's supposed to be easy and fun and conversational, and you're just like huffing and puffing by yourself, being like, why didn't I bring headphones? But a workout, like you might get dropped. Like
Right.
everyone's getting dropped except for maybe the very front dude in it type of thing. So the expectation is that you're just going there and you're working hard with other people, even if you're not working hard shoulder to shoulder. And so
Mhm.
that was actually really fun and really satisfying. And so I think I'm going to try to connect, particularly those workout days, with
Cool.
folks like Cowgill. So
Oh, that's so fun.
you heard it here first, folks. I drank the Kool-Aid. I am a Cowgill adjacent human being. So
Yeah. It's also really cool that you like openly admitted that it's intimidating for you to go to a group run because I think probably a lot of our listeners would assume that for us it's not intimidating at all, but turns out can also be intimidating for people who run for part of their career. So it's not
yeah.
just you.
Yeah. Yeah. So I always try to find my person at a group run. There's a cool group run this Saturday that I'll probably try to join. But
Nice.
it's like the Women Run the Herd group run. So
Oh
it's
yeah.
it's open to women identifying and non-binary runners who are comfortable centering the women's experience. And it should be really, really fun. So I think I might try to join them
Cool.
for a part of that on Saturday. But it is good. Before we dive into some more fun news, I think it's almost universally positive this week for us, which is great because there's a lot of craziness in the world. So we want to share the positivity and the interesting things that make our brains say yay instead of oh no. Before we do that, we have to give a huge shout out to our partner, Rabbit. We're working on some really cool stuff with them. Keely raced in the UPF long sleeve sun hoodie at Big Alta. That sun hoodie is now sold out. Dun, dun, dun.
Coincidence? We don't
We
know.
don't know. We could pretend that it was all on us. Like you guys sold them out. Good work, team. But it seems like it was a really great layer for you, and they actually have a similar one still available. It's just the UPF long sleeve tee. It's made from that same material. It's got the same it's a semi relaxed fit and the same kind of perforations under the arms, which aid in ventilation of the garment. You actually took the start line in the hoodie version, right, at Big Alta?
Uh-huh.
How was
Yeah,
it?
and guys, I lived my dream. It was so fun. Like I come up from getting ready to go to the race and JT looks at me and he was like, "Is that what you're wearing?" because I had my pink shirt on, which is amazing. The UPF long sleeve is so cute. It's super, super light. Again, it's the funfetti, so it's like light pink with some pink, some blue and gray dots. And then I had a black pair of shorts on, and then hot pink socks and purple sneakers. And I was just living my best life with my pink hat on. And he's like, okay, we're just going full on pink. I'm like, yep. And throughout the race, I got so many compliments. I would run in and people would be like, wow, Keely, nice pink. I'm
You're
like,
like,
guys,
I'm
you are
kitted out.
feeding my little child. Like, this is exactly why I wanted to pick my own clothing. Yeah, so it was awesome. I didn't take it off until the final 10K, and honestly, I only took it off because I needed a little bit of a like new stimulus, a little bit of a rally hat moment. So I took it off just to change up my uniform and then finish. Yeah, but wore the hat the whole time. The hat is so cute. I've gotten lots of compliments on that. For a hotter race, hopefully I'll throw some ice in it and actually test it out that way. Big Alta wasn't quite hot enough to need to put ice in anything. But yeah, highly, highly recommend. If there's no hoodie left, I'd just go grab the long sleeve tee. The material is so awesome. It kind of cools you while you're wearing it. And then you can send us some photos and we can all match at races, look really cool together.
That'd be really, really sweet. And so if you would like 10% off, you can go over to the Rabbit website and you're going to use code Rabbit TS10. So RABBITTS10. And that code is good through the end of April. So slide into our DMs if you have any issues, but that code should be good for you for 10% off anything over on the Rabbit website through the end of April. That UPF long sleeve tee is going to look good on a lot of you and keep your skin protected while feeling nice and cool.
Yeah, and if you're coming from Portland and racing in California, even if the UV index is 3, you probably need the UPF hoodie
Because we're
because
translucent
we
this
are
time of year.
pale.
Yeah, it's like when your skin looks blue because you're like, I am very white and very
Yeah.
see-through, and those are my veins. Yeah, it's a whole thing. Okay, let's move on to some fun news. A lot of really cool things, maybe some angsty things in that involves March Madness, some cool science, and some other kind of tidbits. The first thing I wanted to kick off with was that the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, elects its first ever female president. I just want to point out that it's been around for 131 years. And this is the first. So the former Olympic swimmer Kirsty Coventry of Zimbabwe has been elected as the first female president of the International Olympic Committee. The 41-year-old decorated athlete who competed in 5 Olympic Games and earned 7 medals secured 49 of 100 votes in the election held in ancient Olympia, Greece. Coventry, who served as Zimbabwe's Minister of Youth, Sport, Arts, and Recreation since 2018, will serve an 8-year mandate guiding the IOC through the next 4 games. And then I added a fun fact to this because I think it's super interesting, and I've got friends that are from this world. Um, they've reached relative gender parity as far as like event competitions and styles at the Summer Games, but the Winter Games remains uneven because they have not added women's Nordic combined. And the women's Nordic combined athletes have been spending like basically the last 12 years fighting for inclusion in it. They've rallied an international sporting body. They now host world championships. They have international levels of competition. They have world championship competition, and yet they've been kept out of the Olympics. And that is the one sport. And again, Nordic combined combines ski jumping and cross country skiing, and it is still only a men's sport at the Olympic level.
Okay.
So
Well,
that's me just doing some finger wagging over here. Kirsty Coventry, bring us Nordic combined. I don't know. I hope we get Nordic combined before we get like cross country running or cyclocross or something. Like I feel like that'd be an easy add. Is like letting the women compete in a sport that they've proven they have an international like quorum for. They've been competing on the World Cup. They've been competing at World Champs. They've proven that there's enough competition internationally to make it happen. So we'd like to see it happen there too. That's my plea. Okay. Next up, March Madness for our basketball fans. I don't know. Keely's probably been too busy to be watching much March Madness in comparison to last year, but akin to last year's kind of rise to fame with the likes of Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, this year's women's March Madness has been just as hot. You've got stars like Juju Watkins, who unfortunately is out with an ACL tear, but their teammates have been rallying with like wearing Juju Watkins shirts, and people have been holding up signs that are like, I'll give Juju my ACL. But you also have the likes of Paige Buchers of UConn, who missed last year's NCAA March Madness tournament and has officially declared that she'll be going to the WNBA draft this year. So there's still a ton of interest in women's collegiate basketball. And I actually heard a really cool kind of take on this recently, in which men's basketball in the college level, oftentimes they don't develop like character story arcs because they leave to go to the NBA really quickly. They might not even
Mm.
play 4 years. They oftentimes only play a year and then go to the draft. Whereas the women's side, people do play 4 years. Even if they end up in the transfer portal and they play for a couple different teams during their
Mm.
collegiate career, they are in the sport year over year for a 4 year window. And so we actually get to know them, get to see them, get to celebrate them, which is very different than the men's NCAA tournament. The One of the interesting things that's positive out of this March Madness is that the tournament will also feature significant change to as women's teams receive financial
Mm.
payments called units for participating in the March Madness tournament for the first time ever. The men's tournament has done this for years, and I think it equates to like $15 million being paid out to the women's
Wow.
teams that are involved in the
Mm.
March Madness tournament. So
Got it. And is
that's
that
great.
reflective of the revenue that they're bringing in from the streaming, I'm guessing?
I don't think it's completely reflective, but it is a huge step forward
Yeah, yeah,
in
yeah.
that regard. And
Cool.
then the biggest hurdle, the biggest issue probably still pressing the women's and WNBA, or not WNBA, the women's NCAA tournament, is that they essentially determine the stadium usage and arena usage years in advance. And so
Mm.
despite the fact that the forecasted growth for women's NCAA basketball is massive, even through 2031, the women's final game arenas are generally capped at like a $20,000 capacity, or $20,000, 20,000 person capacity. So independent of the fact that we know that interest is growing and that you have more and more people wanting to come watch this tournament in person, they're kind of they're hampered by the sense that we've selected arenas that will not allow for increased seating capacity.
Mm. Shoot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so you got to watch
that's
it.
tough. Yeah. I mean, to me, it feels like 2031 could be something we could change.
That we don't really have to
Yeah,
stay
maybe.
set in this.
But that's good to know. And we're selling out, which is really cool. But it's also, it makes me wonder if we raise the ceiling, how close to that ceiling would we get, you know?
Yeah. And there's still disparity particularly when it comes to like the coaching salaries that are being paid out on the men's side versus the women's side is another big thing that's been highlighted. But otherwise, historic viewers, kind of like showing up and showing over the men's NCAA tournament, as well as the women in the basketball side of the W of the wow, I'm gonna keep saying WNBA of the NCAA basketball scene are like well outperforming their male counterparts when it comes to NIL deals. And so that is also really cool. There's a lot of things that are showing very positively, like where more and more support is coming for these athletes, but there's still some hurdles like giving them a big enough arena, which seems like an easy ask.
Hmm. Totally. Yeah, and I feel like just a little bit on this note, the WNBA is also seeing really cool growth. There was a headline I saw in relation to Caitlin Clark's team, the Indiana Fever, that they'll have 41 out of 44 games nationally broadcasted, and that makes them the most televised team in basketball, surpassing every NBA franchise, which is really cool.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so I feel like yeah, it's just a really cool time for women's basketball. Obviously, people are enjoying watching the women duke it out, and I've been really liking pl the play level. It's really fun to watch, but I've also really liked the camaraderie. After Juju tore her ACL, she received a ton of like texts and stuff from other players who've either been injured, torn their ACL, or just wanted to send compassion. I loved seeing them all rally behind her. Like Paige sent her a text, Caitlin sent her something just to show their support and acknowledge that ACL tears are kind of common in women's basketball, unfortunately, but that, they were telling her that they supported her and really were rooting for her to get through the surgery, get through rehab, and be back out there. So that was really cool. And yeah, my heart breaks for Juju, but hopefully she'll get back stronger.
Yeah, agreed, agreed, agreed. Maybe this is a tie-in because we know that we need more research done on maybe the quad to hamstring dysfunction, maybe we can call
Yeah.
it, for female athletes in these jump related sports like basketball, soccer,
Yeah.
volleyball.
Now whenever I see torn ACLs, I'm like, I know how we fix that.
You're like, we will fix that. Our little future orthopod over here. Um, okay, so this next bit was really fun, and then we'll dive into a tiny bit of brain science that has been covered kind of widely, but I think we'll give a little take for our audience on it, and we'll tag into our neuroscience resident neuroscience nerd Hillary on that. But first and foremost, calling all PhDs. This was really exciting when I saw this come across my inbox this week. Loughborough University has established a multi-million-pound women in sport research and innovation hub. Designed to accelerate growth and excellence in the women's sports sector, the facility brings together 4 university departments to collaborate with national governing bodies, elite athletes, and industry partners on studies ranging from menstrual cycle impact on performance to sports bra technology. Commercial partner Vitality Health and Life Insurance will fund PhD projects focused on breaking down barriers women face in pursuing active lifestyles. So from general, keeping women active all the way up to national teams and high elite athlete levels. Super excited to see this coming out of a university over in the UK, I believe. So Loughborough University, yeah, establishing a new funding pipeline for interested PhD candidates.
Very cool. A lot of cool science happening in the UK.
Yeah, Keely's looking very focused.
Okay, it's because my old boss, Bridget, is part of this whole thing,
Oh,
which is really,
sick.
really cool. Yeah. So she's been keeping me kind of updated on this, but I didn't know it was finally made
It's
public
public.
that
Yeah.
they're doing it. Yeah, it's really cool. So she's part of, yeah, one of the people who does a lot of women's stuff at Nike, and she's helped kind of drive this a little bit, which is really,
Very
really
That's
cool.
so sick. Yeah, what a cool opportunity. So if you're in the grad school space, have been thinking about grad school, maybe you're a master's candidate now and you'd like to do a PhD, this would be a super cool way to get a lot of industry experience as well. Because what are you going to do post PhD? Do you want to stay in academics? Do you want to go into the industry? This would be a cool PhD program that's focused on kind of making that industry to academia
Mhm.
pipeline a reality in a really cool sector. So, yay, not us, but yay, this program. Okay.
Really cool.
I know it's like after talking to Naomi and Morgan a couple episodes ago, I was like, academia. Like that's so exciting. I want this. And I was like, no, Corinne, you're doing great. Okay. Final thing that I think is super interesting. I subscribe to the Nature Daily Briefing. So
I
I
got
get
this too.
I get an email every single day from Nature with some interesting stuff happening in the science world. And this one came across the desk. I think it's been pretty widely shared, but basically it's a little clickbaity where it says brains might eat myelin during marathons. And so it goes on to say brain scans of marathon runners suggest that myelin, a fatty substance that insulates the electrical signals transmitted by nerve cells, might also be a source of energy for the brain, which I think is really cool. After a race runner's levels of myelin are lower in areas involved in motor control, sensory, and emotional processing than before they set off. The loss doesn't seem to affect cognitive function, and levels bounced back after a couple months. But it didn't bounce back in 2 weeks, which I think was interesting. The experience might even be beneficial because it, quote, exercises the brain's metabolic machinery, says neuroscientist, runner, and study co-author Carlos Matute. That's how I'm saying your last name. I don't think it's right. But what I thought was really interesting was that there's a lot of kind of like novelty in this study. Like we know that functional MRIs are a thing. They use them for that's not a crazy use for it, but they had to develop like what is going to be biologically significant. How are we going to look at specific parts of the brain? What parts of the brain are we going to deem significant to look at? And so they had to make some kind of like calculated guesses in this snippet, but I do hope that it encourages future research. And it makes me
Yes.
think a lot about how bonky I feel for like many weeks after a long ultra, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a little concerning. Like myelin can be
Maybe.
regenerated, but it's not like it has an unlimited potential to be regenerated, and that regeneration goes down with age. So I'm like a little bit, that makes me a little nervous. Hillary,
No,
you have
but
any thoughts?
Well,
yeah, I was gonna say
yeah.
Hillary, yeah.
Well, the main things I wanted to point out there, it's obviously goes to like it's kind of with the cascade. They specifically said like marathon runners because it's like the cascade of fueling, right? Like when it's like you use carbohydrates and glucose right at the start, and then the muscles and the brain are huge recipients of that. But then once the glycogen scores go down, you can utilize fatty acids, right? And that has the ketone bodies that can pass through the blood-brain barrier. But it says specifically in a marathon when it's extreme glucose deprivation and people probably aren't fueling as much as they want, the brain may begin to metabolize its own myelin because it is just a fatty source to basically
Right.
generate those, like if it's in a state of hypoglycemia during intense exercise, it
And most of
has
the
those
participants are
fat stores
older.
to be able to like
Mhm.
generate those its own ketone bodies and use that. And so it's like acutely, right? And it does it in areas, I guess, where it's like over myelinated, right? In these, and I mean, it's kind of concerning. It says like motor neurons because you're like using that in exercise. But I'm thinking of areas of the brain where the myelination is like kind of it's extra
Extra.
padded. So you have some of that extra buffer, right? But this is, I think, we were talking about it offline, like some future studies to show, but basically of like if you're in a state of like under fueling preseason or just in general, like that you could actually kick this into potentially could kick this into hyperdrive. So I mean it's really interesting to me looking at it because when you look at the brain, it's a like it uses glucose and fatty acids for its primary sources of
And it needs glucose. Like glucose,
Mhm.
it's
glucose
like
is
the
the
brain
main
needs a
source of
lot
it,
of
right?
glucose. Yeah.
Yeah, but like it's also just this fatty tissue. So there's a lot of fat there. So if in order to kind of cut out the middleman and like rely on fat stores and other parts to be delivered through the blood-brain barrier, it can do it itself. But it also made me think of and during graduate school, I was doing a rotation in the lab that studied epilepsy. And one of the main treatments that they were trying out in mice and rats was high fat diets. And using that as like as a treatment method for to help with epilepsy to basically like pad the seizures and like to protect like it was some it was neuroprotective, right? Like to protect the neurons from these like huge basically metabolic stresses is which were seizures. So they saw, I think this is actually, and Keely, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that there are some that can be a treatment for certain patients with certain brain diseases, a
Like
high
using a
fat
high
diet.
fat diet, like a
Mm.
lower carbohydrate, high fat diet. Yeah.
Yeah.
There are clinical instances where I think they're seeing like good relevance with it,
Yep.
right? Where we might not see it in a sporting population as much, but
Hmm.
for a clinical population, there are certain disease pathways that might respond well to it.
Hmm.
Mhm.
It's super interesting. Well, it makes me think a couple things. One, like these are marathon runners who we know like notoriously maybe don't fuel well on the old marathon journey, right? You're like trying to sip Gatorade from like Dixie cups along the
Yeah.
course, and like maybe you bring some gels. So I think that's changing, right? The participants in the study were a bit older, so I also wonder like if they are using newer fueling strategies or not. There may or may not be on the high carb bandwagon. But it does make me wonder, right, a little bit like on races where you fueled well, you're still going to go into
Mhm.
deficit no matter what you do, right? But if you fueled well, do you feel like less like weird and laggy for a couple weeks after a race versus maybe some of those early ultras that we've all done where like we had no idea what we were doing and we definitely bonked and we were maybe getting 60 grams of carbs an hour, maybe definitely not averaged out over 10 or 12 hours. And I've definitely felt weird after those races where I probably did need some of that myelin to make it happen versus maybe modern diets. It also makes me like wonder questions around like exogenous ketone use. Like maybe is this an area in which is that
Mhm.
protective then in some of these scenarios where I'm like, I'm not a huge proponent of exogenous ketone use. I don't understand the science super well. I haven't spent a lot of time digging into it. And I think most people have been pretty hesitant about using them during exercise versus like post hard exercise periodically. And so curious a little bit as to like maybe that's role in this, or could that like what like you could do a study, right, where you like utilized exogenous ketones in a controlled manner and like looked at myelin changes.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Lots of speculation.
It's interesting. I think the general summary that I take away is just make sure you're fueling when you do these crazy endurance events because even if we can sort of regenerate myelin, I don't really want to play the odds of that game. You
Strip them
know?
all down. Yeah, I mean there are diseases that are hemmed on demyelination,
Yeah.
right? Like we're like that is the root
Totally.
cause of the
Yeah.
disease.
And massive demyelination does not regenerate super well. So I feel like just, you know, really practice your fueling, everybody.
Yeah. It's a good reason,
But
good
super
reason to eat extra
interesting,
snacks.
super
Yeah,
interesting area
last
of
ditch,
research.
last ditch efforts. It's like when you're in a state of stress, your body can go to some extreme measures.
Yeah, doesn't mean that we should like
Put it there
Live
on
in the
purpose.
extreme.
So
Yeah. No.
I can't afford to have 2 weeks of demyelinated brain.
You're like, I can't do surgery
And
like
now I
this.
failed 2 of my exams.
Okay, well, we got some stuff to put into practice at Canyons, baby. Okay. We digress. But yeah, I thought it was super interesting. It's gotten a lot of play, so I just wanted to talk about it and like just see kind of what our general takes were. It was a snapshot study, so it wasn't a super in-depth report. But I do think it's interesting, and I love that the co-author is a runner and has probably been thinking about this thing a little bit in his own personal experience. So it was kind of cool to see that play out. Okay, some results. I'm gonna miss a lot of results, but I want to give some high level pertinent to our future episodes results. Starting with Chianti by UTMB. It was the next golden ticket race, but first and foremost, special shout out to the women's 73K distance, which falls into the 100K category. There's a really cool battle between Gemma Hillier Moses, I think who's British, maybe, outran Rosanna Bucher, the German Dynafit athlete, by 2 minutes. They ran 7:02 and 7:04, like epic battle. The hugs at the finish line, they're like both covered in mud. It was a super nasty race weekend, very muddy, very wet. There's like this amazing photo of them both hugging it out at the end after duking it out all day. But special note is that Rosanna will be joining us at Western States after getting a golden ticket at CCC. So great tune-up race for the German athlete, and we'll be keeping our eyes on her as she makes her way stateside later this spring and summer. The main race, though, the main golden ticket race was 120 kilometers, falling into that 100-mile distance by UTMB rules and regulations. And it felt like all the hype going into the race, coming out of the race was about the men. And I get it. There were some big deal names on the line. We wanted some very specific people to get tickets because we wanted them at Western States. But we got to give the women's race lots of love and lots of hype because they duked it out over what was essentially the world's hardest, nastiest cross country race course. They managed to squeeze in like almost 18,000 feet of climbing while still like staying in vineyards in
Oof,
Italy,
that's a
like
lot.
very steep, weird double track, that kind of thing. And I heard it was just epically sloppy. And then it was like mentally a hard day to stay super engaged because it was just cold and wet. They started at 4 a.m.
Mhm.
talking to Abby Hall. It was like you had to be mentally in it all day and be very intrinsically motivated because it was maybe not the most inspiring experience to be duking it out for 12 or 13 hours out there. But the first lady across the line is a name that we've talked about a few times on here, actually, who may or may not sound familiar, and that is Fiona Pascal, the little sister
Yeah.
of Beth Pascal, the 2021 Western States champion.
Who has warned us about her sister many times.
Yes, who has been like, I will never be as fast as Fiona is, which is scary to think about because Beth is really dang fast. It's also cool because at some point in time, we're going to start referring to Beth as Fiona's older sister as opposed to the other way around. But very, very cool. I didn't check today. Her 2 weeks are almost up on deciding, and her coach made it sound like she probably wasn't going to go to Western States because UTMB is the focus. I do know that she reached out to Craig being like, I'm thinking really hard about this. And like, I just like was kind of coming up to the end of the 2 weeks and was like, I need the days to decide. So by the time this comes out, it'll be decided. Either Fiona will be in the race or she will have deferred her ticket and or not deferred, he'll have said no to the ticket and it'll have rolled down to Azara Garcia, who finished third. We're kind of waiting to hear if she deferred her ticket or not. You can go to Keely if you bop up over to the Western States
That's what I'm looking at right
golden
now.
ticket website. Does it say that
She's not on there
pending?
yet.
Does it say Fiona Pascal pending?
In the 2025 entrance.
No, 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 no. If you go to the Western States website, wow, we're
Yep.
gonna just do some housekeeping on this and go to the golden ticket section. It lists all the results by race and it will say if they've accepted their ticket or if it's pending.
Okay.
So while she does that,
Entry.
the second place finisher was the Finnish athlete Johanna Antila, which I'm very excited to have her on the Western States start line as well. Love having more Scandinavians join us over stateside for the race. Hard fought. The images actually coming from the end of the race was Johanna looked like she was really having a hard time. And I was like, oh man, Azara might close on her. Like, this is crazy. This could be like really wild, actually. And Azara's coming back from like 6 months of injury like she finally felt good enough to race 100+ kilometer distance type of thing. I think she has gone for a golden ticket in the past. I think that's why she raced CCC was intentionally for a golden ticket chance. And so
Mm,
very interesting um to see her there. And so it sounds like Fiona is still pending. Johanna Antilli has accepted her ticket. If Fiona declines her ticket, it will roll down to Azara Garcia. And then if for some reason Azara didn't feel comfortable taking it this time around because she's been dealing with injury, it would roll to Abby Hall, sitting in fourth position
it's
after
exciting.
like two near misses,
Yeah.
right? Black Canyon, great performance, 3 minutes out of a ticket, a little bit further out of a ticket here, but still sitting in fourth place. So two really amazing 100+ kilometer races just this spring, which is not an easy
Mm-mm.
task. And we got to remember Abby is coming back from major leg surgery just like 18 months ago, basically.
Yeah,
So really cool to see her back just duking it out.
totally. And these are not too easy 100Ks to go back to back on either. One
Yeah.
super fast, and this one was quite long.
Yeah.
Lots
Super
of hills.
long,
Yeah.
really hard, really wet and cold. Want to give special shout outs though to Stephanie Howe for a super solid run in fifth, only a couple minutes back on Abby, and it just seemed like Steph really like put together a super great day. And then Amanda Basham sounded like she was buggling a stomach bug, battling a little stomach something or another, and like basically like put it together still to finish 10th, which I think is no easy task at all. But I'm sure she would have liked to be more in the mix over the course of the day. I guess we should talk about the men's race really briefly. Jim Walmsley did his thing. He won. The one funny thing I will mention is that pre-race he was asked like, "Oh, if you win, if you get a ticket, will you take it?" And he kind of looks at this European reporter and is like, I'm M1. Like I have the M1 bib. Like I don't need a ticket." Um, and so he does gesture at the finish line, and people are like, "Is he like referencing 13 hours?" Because he puts up one finger
And
and then three
one.
fingers, but it's M1, and so that's how I'm interpreting it anyway. So he runs away with it, sub 10 hours, well clear of the chasing men, but the two men that I think many people were hoping got tickets into Western states are none other than Kilian Jornet and Vincent Bouliard. They battled it out, finishing in 10:27:27 and 10:27:57, and they were like 45 minutes clear of fourth. So they both secured their tickets on maybe less than ideal days for both of them. Kilian was like physically limping around at the finish line. So less than ideal days maybe from those two gentlemen, but we'll have them at Western States. So that is a big deal. Okay.
Really cool.
Some quick Big Alta hits. Just real quick. It was in our backyards. It was really cool. Our very own Keely was there racing 28K day, short and fast. Andy Wacker takes the win in 1:47 ahead of Darren Thomas and
Oh,
Johan De Leon. Women, Ruby Lindquist absolutely like destroys the race. 2:18:32 takes the win over Sylvie Abel and Julia Schultz. Men's 50K, women's 50K too. The Hemming duo that takes phenomenal wins in the 50K. Eli Hemming ran away with it, running 3:19:30, eclipsing, I think, first time 50Ks maybe for both Eddie Owens and Remy LaRue. They run 3:26 and 3:30, or yeah, 3:26 and 3:28, respectively, to Eli's 3:19. On the women's side, Tabor Hemming, insanely fast with a 4:04 on that course, even without the Whopper. That's nuts. Like that's really
they
fast.
all ran so fast.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean Lindsay Allison finished second in 4:11:02 and Erin Moyer finished in 4:13. Like it wasn't, I
So
mean, Tabor
fast.
and Eli both win by a sizable margin, but that entire podium was running hot. Yeah. Keely's like, yes, I
Yeah.
saw them and I was like,
Well, I
good
mean,
job,
looking
baby.
at, yeah, it's just like looking at the times from last year, I was like, okay, they got rid of one of the technical sections. That probably gives you 10 minutes. So going off of Lottie's 4:48, you're like, okay, 4:38. I was like, okay, maybe I'll try to go sub 4:30. That feels reasonable. And like run a 4:24 and in fourth by a lot. I'm like, what is going
You're like,
on?
I'm 10 minutes behind everyone. Yeah, it sounds like they think that the Whopper section probably took out 15 to 20 minutes
Okay.
of the course. So a little bit longer as far as like maybe what was missed out there, but still just stupid fast on both sides.
Yeah, really fast.
So I guess, Keely, we'd like to hear a little bit more about your Big Alta experience besides the fact that everyone ran really fast. And I guess like just to back up a little bit, we would love to hear just kind of like the decisions, like the whys, what's, and hows of like obviously it was spring break, so that was a convenience factor, but just like say like talk about like wanting to go rip the band-aid off at Big Alta.
Yeah, I mean, I was really conflicted for a long time on picking a race, and no race really looked that appealing to me. So my thought was just to not race until one looked cool. And yeah, I think this one ended up being pretty perfect timing because I think even though I had to, be in school most of Thursday and take a bunch of exams Friday before driving the rest of the way, I didn't have to worry about school after, which felt really nice. And so even though obviously not ideal, it was cool to just put something on the calendar. I love going to the Headlands, and so really I just chose it because the course looked really cool. It looked a little bit out of my wheelhouse in terms of climbing and descending, which is another reason why I picked it because we all know about the repeated bout effect, and I definitely with some future races coming up, needed some sort of quad burner because I just can't get that much climbing and descending in my weeks. Like I was stoked to get 6 or 7,000 feet in a week, let alone 7,600 in a 50K. And so, yeah, there were a lot of reasons why I decided to do it. And again, I hadn't raced since Transvolcania back in May and had been dealing with tons of like health things and then having school and having the wedding. And so I really just wanted to get back out there and run, what felt pretty good to me without blowing myself up because I wanted to finish feeling like I still could keep going. Since I'm trying to race a race that's double that distance in the not too long future. And so, yeah, those were kind of my goals was like, okay, give me a 50K, make it fast, make it hard, finish feeling like I can keep going, get a really good quad burner, and then do it at a time where maybe I can recover really well because I don't have to go right back to studying for 8 hours that day. I can actually just lay and take a nap and do things that I want to do. And so, yeah, all of those things kind of played into it. And it being in the bay and being on what some of my favorite trails was just like the icing on the cake, really.
Have you been out to the north, like that side of Marin? Like that's pretty
No,
far north in the
it was
Marin
cool.
County zone.
Yeah, I had
Yeah.
never been out there.
Yeah. Hillary, you spent a bunch of time out in that zone kind of last winter. Did you bike out there? Because there's quite a bit of mountain biking in that
I
like zone.
Those
yeah.
trails looked sick. I was like,
Oh
I wish I
my
had
gosh,
my
and
bike
it's
for this
steep.
descent.
Holy moly. Going up to like Big Rock, I did like a crazy adventure with Alex Varner up on those trails, and that was kind of my first time exploring it. And then I had was visiting Dylan and Harmony down there. And I did like the shorter version. Like I didn't do the 50K loop, but I did
Nice.
the 28K. So yeah, those trails are awesome. So it's fun experiencing that like running and riding, but like it's non-technical for riding, but it's super freaking steep. It's so like the from the Big Rock climb, especially from
Hmm.
Dylan's neighborhood, to try to ride a bike up that. It's like it's
Yeah,
really hard.
Yeah. I got
totally.
super fit biking in the Bay Area when I was injured just because like you run out of gears really easily and you're like, well, I guess I have to keep going. Like I
Yeah.
guess it's that or walk my bike. Like those are the two options. So I guess we're
Yeah.
doing a lot of threshold training. Um yeah, it's beautiful though. And I'm glad the weather was like relatively good for you all. I know that you guys had Carl the Fog in play, but otherwise it was pretty nice.
Yeah, it was perfect. It was like 60 and cloudy, so couldn't ask for better weather.
Love it. I would love to hear a little bit about this. We've talked about it some, but maybe not in detail. You're just in a different phase, right? Like, and obviously you were a Nike employee and you were also a runner. And I feel like even in that role, to me on the outside looking in, running was like running and work were kind of like equals in your life in a big way. And the work was like pretty amenable to making that happen. Now, medical school doesn't necessarily care about your running, right? Like, while we say that we care about your health and well-being, it doesn't really care about your running. And so running kind of has to take a back seat to this bigger long-term career goal. And so I'm just wondering how that feels and looks in the day-to-day and also as you like think ahead to longer running objectives.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. As I've been reflecting on the time when I was working at Nike and running, I've slowly realized that it is very different than what I'm doing now. Because to your point, Nike is really supportive of athletes and people who want to pursue this secondary thing. And it was a 9 to 5. So, on the worst weeks, I was working 40 to 50 hours, but it's not really like hard, really, really strenuous work. It's a little less crazy. And again, they really support work-life balance. And so if I wanted to go for a run at noon for my lunch break and take a couple hour lunch break instead of, running at 5 a.m., I was able to do that. Whereas, in medicine, especially now where we're balancing, 40 hours or more of school plus 5 to 7 hours of rotations in a week, plus some other things they throw on our plates, I'm at a minimum of a 60-hour a week kind of job. And a lot of that is really high intensity, on your feet all day or just studying all day where it's crazy calories being burned by the brain. And so it is a lot different. I think running at 5 a.m. consistently is really helpful for mental strength, but it's not super helpful for recovery, right? You're not getting the right amount of sleep every day. I don't go to bed at 8. There's no way for me to fall asleep that early. And so you're always a little bit out of a sleep deficit. You're always a little bit underfueled, like going into the run. And so, yeah, it's a lot of things that are outside of my control, but I do love having running because it is something that I feel like I can control at least some of the time. And it's something that still brings me a lot of joy. And I love the training process and having something like that during school. But yeah, I posted something a little bit ago talking about that balance and that it's not, you're never in balance. Like some days I wake up today, for instance, I had a couple friends who ended up bailing on my early run. I'm supposed to do almost 5 hours of running today. I don't have 5 hours on a weekday. So I was going to try to squeeze it in this morning because I had some schedule changes that happened yesterday that changed my day to day and had some friends bail. I woke up super tired, was like, all right, I'm going to go in the afternoon because I need sleep. I'm toasted. And you have a lot of those decisions you have to make because otherwise, I think you just completely run yourself into the ground. And yeah, I'm not doing as much mileage as I used to. And that's okay because, again, I found a balance where I can still use my brain, still be present for my friends and partner, and also still run. And so, it's really, really hard. And I thought it'd be a little bit easier, but it's hard.
Yeah, and I mean, when I have to do that, it's because I've messed up my schedule generally. Like my schedule, well, not entirely in my control anymore because I am at the whims of my favorite overlords being Hoka. But I have a 7 a.m. call on Thursdays because it involves folks in Europe. And like I am so happy to be on that call. But it means that like I'm either running super early and doing like a short shakeout in the morning or going to the gym really early and then do something in the afternoon. But it's like generally when I mess up the balance, it's because I messed up the balance. And it's like, yeah, I've cut run shorts because it's like, oh, I really need to like go home and actually like knock out these emails or like talk to these athletes. And I think Hillary, you probably feel that as well. But you and I definitely have a little bit more control over our chaos, even though we both probably over schedule ourselves sometimes.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, it's like I felt that way. Like my life is like dominoes. It's like if one goes and then like it all goes. Like my flight coming back from London was like this total mess. And it's like I was traveling for like way longer than I thought, like, had to like reschedule a meeting and stuff like this. And it's just like all these, places going in. It's like, oh, well, some of it is out of your control. But yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, I definitely hear that even though um yeah, I mean, I can have more control over a schedule, but
Yeah.
sometimes you can if it's like other, meetings and things. But
Mhm.
um, that might change for me soon. That might be a plan to a grad school program, TBD.
Cool.
We like this. The nerds in us are really excited about that. But I will
Actually, in 2 weeks, I'll find out.
Okay, next episode.
next episode, the intro outro is gonna be lit. As the kids say, they're like, okay, boomer, go to your corner, Corinne. Um, I just have a birthday. I just turned
I
35 yesterday.
know,
So
exciting.
in some
Yay!
in some realms, I'm a master's athlete now.
What?
And
Oh
then
my
and
God,
then and
Gonna
then
cycling.
take
my
down
and then
all
my
those
friend and then
records.
my friends are like, Corinne, you're not 40 yet. And I'm like, I know,
But
but
in cycling, you are. Your master's like 33 or something.
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know. We're gonna make it happen. But basically, I think in hearing all of that from all of us about like the dominoes falling or the stress of making it all happen, or like we're excited to make it all happen, but it's hard. And none of us have a family. Like we all
Mhm.
like none of us have kids that we're juggling in this picture. We've got very needy pets. At least two of us have very needy pets.
That makes
But otherwise, we're not like that does make things easier. Like that is a choice right now.
Oh yeah.
But I will say, I think all of us are in different places now than we would have probably said 3 years ago or 5 years ago, where if you had to modify that training, like Keely, like you're probably not going to get 5 hours in today and you're going to have to modify your training and you didn't run this morning. 3 years ago, that might have ruined your day. That might have made you a
True.
bad person. I've definitely been there where it's like, oh, my run got cut short. I am a bad person now. And I like am going to be angry about it for the rest of the day. Like, Hillary, I know that you felt this the same thing. And so I do think
No.
it's no, never. But I do think it's very cool. And maybe it's because we are all old and wise. We're so wise that like we've been able to be better about like doing all of this with like a tiny bit of grace as well and like forgiving ourselves and being giving ourselves some space to like recognize that like it doesn't have to be perfect. We like just have to do what we can and like like not survive, but like
Mhm.
embrace the imperfections in all of this too, because balance is a fallacy and we're all just moving something up a hill at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, but it doesn't make it any easier. And I would love to hear your guys' opinion of this too. But I think we all hold ourselves to really high levels of success. And so I think, when you do feel like you're not doing everything you can for your training, it doesn't feel great because I think we're all used to doing as much as we can and feeling like we're putting in enough. And so I think when you have consistent modification to what your ideal training would be, it doesn't feel great. But again, I know the alternative does not exist. So if I forced myself to do these things, I wouldn't be running. I would be injured or I would be something, right? And so, but yeah, it doesn't feel great. I think that's one thing I'm trying to grapple with right now is that I'm trying and that's all I can do. And I'm stoked with that I'm trying, but it definitely is hard. And I don't feel like I'm getting the best training that I could get in. And I have to be okay with that because I know the alternative doesn't exist. But it's not like that's easy.
What's the phrase? I feel like it's used in surgery and in other realms. It's like, don't let perfect get in the way of
Joy.
good.
Or
Of
yeah,
is
yeah,
it
yeah, yeah.
joy? I like joy, but I think it's
It's
like, don't let perfect get in the way of good or something like that nature.
probably changes in the context, but there's also one that's like, don't let perfection get in the way of joy or something. But I think I see where you're coming from with surgery too.
Yeah, where it's like you can like get really in the weeds about making
hmm
something perfect when like it's good. Like what you're
hmm
doing is good. It like
Yeah.
yeah.
I think of like the 90% rule, the 85% rule, where it's like the energy it takes to like do that last 10%, like it just it is it worth it? Like the
hmm
energy and the time it takes to like reach that last 10% actually, like for an athlete's perspective, increases your risk of injury, or like from a research perspective, it takes so much time that it actually might not even be worth it. And I think about that too of like, okay, if I'm like on the cusp of like, do I do this workout because, it's, this is gonna give me that 1% faster or whatever, that, but it might be like 20% more likely to injure me if I'm like sleep deprived or like busy and all these other
hmm
things. So it's also, I think that
hmm
maybe the busier we are, the older we get, we can have that wisdom. I think it's also, we're all three coaches, so I feel like we have like more data points to be able to learn from in
hmm
addition to our own experiences. But yeah, I think about that same concept of like the perfectionism. This is coming from, a recovering or current perfectionist. It's
Oh,
like,
Yep.
I'm a lazy perfectionist. I'm all about the
what?
like
How does
ever
that
since like
work, Corinne?
okay,
I
let
wish
me
I was
just
a lazy
okay.
perfectionist.
I what I mean by that is that I've been this way since high school, I want to say, in part because I'm like way more about the extracurriculars than I am about the school. Which is probably why grad school and I wasn't like a
Ah.
perfect fit. Was I am totally okay taking the B
Mm,
Mm.
if I don't, because it, particularly if the A requires like 40% more work or whatever it
mhm.
is. Like
But
I
that's
am
the,
like
yeah,
that is my like I
Yep.
am really good at that 85 or 90% thing because it's like I that is I am okay. Like I like it doesn't hurt me. I don't feel bad about myself like taking the B or the A minus or whatever it is. Um because I would rather do that than like invest the extra time and energy to
right.
like go
Yeah.
from there to
And that's like what
ostensibly
I
the
was
same grade.
saying, yeah. It's like
hmm
that same concept, right? But if you think about it like time and time over again, it's like you don't have to nail every workout. It's like still being able to like or nail every training. It's like you can kind of aim for like the 80 to 90% range, and like that consistently over time will actually like lead to like
Yep.
pretty good results, above average results, like,
hmm
and so that's been my whole like yeah, quest of like the recovering perfectionist of like aiming for that part, because sometimes my 85 is like other people's 100.
hmm hmm
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you do really well in med school with the pass fail kind of motto,
Yeah.
Corinne, which I've been having to really teach myself to embrace because med school is different now where you don't get graded you have to just pass, and nobody will see those grades. And my brain until recently was still like, no, they're going to use the grades, so I must keep getting hundreds. And it's like, you can't get
Ah,
hundreds
you just
because
gotta pass.
you have to
Mhm.
pass, but you also need to differentiate yourself from everyone else now in a different way. And so you can't afford to go and give 110% of yourself to the grades, because then you won't get research publications, then you won't get volunteering hours. And when you're applying to residency now, that's what they look for because there's no grades. And so they've almost shifted it a bit so that, yeah, it's pass fail, but it's not any easier because you have to fill your time with everything else. So it's
Yeah.
really interesting. And as a perfectionist, it's been really hard for me to let go of that because I really like learning and I really like doing well. And I still will always do well. But it's like, yeah, I can't invest 110% into that because that's unachievable with all of
Right.
the other demands. And that's been a hard pill to swallow, but I'm slowly getting there as of lately because I'm realizing that I have to invest energy elsewhere sometimes.
Yeah, and you're gonna have just banger letters of recommendation. Like I know it.
I
I
hope
know it.
so.
I know that your clinicals are gonna go really well and your sub-Is down the road are gonna go super well and you're gonna have amazing letters of rec and everyone's gonna want you and residency is going to be perfect. Um,
There we go.
but then buttoning that one up. I guess we understand what your goal. I'm bringing it back to Big Alta now.
Mhm.
Um, we understand that your goals were to like kind of rip the band-aid off, get blast the quads with some downhill and eccentric loading, get that, you know, that bout response so that you're ready to go later this month. But I guess like just tell us how the race went, right? Like everyone ran super freaking fast. It sounds like you dial out like your nutrition was actually like really, really good, which I know that like hasn't always been the case. You've been working really hard on it, but it feels like it's kind of like it's just hard to execute on race day. So just like maybe walk us through kind of to wrap Big Alta up, like how the day went, how it felt, and like did you get an A? Did you get 100% on your nutrition?
I would say I definitely got 100% on my nutrition. Yeah. Um, so yeah, it started off fast. Eli and Aaron ran out super hot. And so immediately after, especially, I didn't know who was racing. So let's back up a little bit. Once I saw Tabor online, I was like, okay, not sticking with her. My fitness is not there right now. But so I kind of knew I would let her go just based off of where my fitness is at. But everyone ran out really fast. And I think what I'm realizing lately is that typically when women go out fast, especially in these shorter 50K distances, it's hard to make up that ground. Now, 100K, a little different. There's a lot more leeway there, but 50K, really, really hard. Um, and so I started off running with Lindsay Allison, who I'd never met, and she's so sweet. It was really fun to run with her for about 6 or 7 miles.
She's a chatty Kathy.
She is very
She's
chatty. It
like,
was
let's run this
great.
whole thing together. We ran way
Yep.
too cool together. She's like, let's go, let's
It
do
was
this.
so fun. But then around 7 miles, I realized that I was already kind of feeling it in the quads. And so I was like, okay, I need to back off this pace a little bit if I want to finish with my first goal in mind, which is to feel like I could keep running and not get to the finish line and fall over. And so I backed off a bit there and was just kind of running in fourth the rest of the day. Um, expecting to maybe like get a glimpse of one of them, but I wasn't running super, I didn't feel like I was running super fast. So not catching any of them didn't shock me. But the race like was really hard. I think this is what I've been telling a lot of my athletes as well. I think we get caught up in this world of trail running where we think 50K is short, but 50K is actually really long. And it still hurts and it still takes you through the pain cave and it still makes you question yourself and it makes you doubt yourself and it makes you doubt your training and question why you're doing the sport. And I had a lot of those moments. And I think that was really good for me because, again, it had been a year and it was a good reminder that these races are hard. You're going to have those negative moments during a race and you're going to have to come out of them. And so, yeah, the race was not that great. I had a lot of negative mental parts of the race because I felt slow and I was like, holy cow, I can't keep up with these people, especially not where I want to finish not toasted because I need the mental strength to know that I can keep running. And that's really hard to swallow as someone who like thinks that normally I'm pretty fast. I'm like, I normally can hang with some fast people, not even close. And so mentally the whole time then you're just struggling to be like, why am I out here? Why am I doing this? What am I doing? Clearly I can't balance med school and running. Like this is not going well. But then I would come back and be like, no, what was my goal? My goal is to get a race under the belt. The goal is to run a race that I know my fitness isn't quite ready for, to get the fueling dialed, to feel like I know how to race. and to finish feeling like I keep going, knowing that I have a longer race. That's my bigger goal. And so I just had to keep coming back to that, like letting my legs run, not getting tensed because I'm stressed, not like over analyzing how slow I was or how far back I was or any of those things. But it was really, really hard. So yeah, I don't know. The race was perfect in the sense that it was a really great opener to me for the season, a reminder of racing and a reminder that racing is hard, but it definitely was really hard. One thing though that made it greater was that I saw a couple of my athletes out there. I saw a lot of people who liked my pink outfit. I saw a lot of people who liked the podcast, and all of those people made it so amazing. And my overall like motto for the race, even though I had a lot of these mentally low moments, was just like gratitude to be out there, gratitude to be running on a day where I didn't have to go into clinic or go study afterwards. And so I tried to really embrace that when things got hard, even though things were really hard, and it would be like remiss of me to not acknowledge that it was a really hard mental run.
Yeah. I guess maybe final thing for Big Alta. This was a race in the pipeline to a bigger goal. Just like anything that you're putting, like that you're reminding yourself or that you want to like act on when it comes to like stepping it up at the end of the month.
Yeah, so talking with my coach after this race, I think it was pretty apparent to me that I haven't gotten much long run practice in just because of timing. Every weekend I have, 2.5 hours, and that feels really reasonable where I can do this long run and not be toasted for the rest of the day and also still have time to study, to do laundry, to do all sorts of other stuff. But I've realized that I need to at least get a couple more practices into these long runs to just remind myself of what they feel like, because that felt so foreign to me to have all those ups and downs when you don't have that many ups and downs when your longest run is 2.5 hours. You might have one, right? And it's not that bad. So I definitely need to incorporate a little bit more of those. But I think going into a much longer race, I just need to trust myself, and that's something I don't have right now because I've been so out of it for so long, and last year was kind of a dumpster fire in terms of training and racing. And so I just need to trust that my fitness is where it's at. I know how to run these things, and I can't run someone else's race. I need to just continue to run what I know I can run, which is what I did at Big Alta. I knew I could hold that pace for 50K and not feel toasted. And I just need to know that in 100K, you just need to keep trusting yourself because it's long. It's a lot longer than 50K. And like, I know how to do this thing. And if my fitness isn't there, that's okay. But I need to just keep running true to myself. And that's the only way that I'm going to do this, and trust that I'm able to do it and trust that I know what to do. And so I think the rest of this month's just going to be a couple more long run practices and a lot of mental training. And a little fun fact on my mental training, I find the best mental training to be in the sauna. And so I'll just
Mm.
pair my sauna training with some mental training. Um, and hopefully that'll be good. But yeah, it'll be a big jump up to do 100K, but we'll eat the elephant one bite at a time, just like anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, way to wrap up meat and potatoes and tofu and whatever. But nice work. We're thrilled for you, and we're really excited to see you
Yeah.
race 100K here soon. Speaking of racing 100K, you might get to do it in some snazzy new rabbit product that we've been working on. We got the first glimpse yesterday. And I think my reaction, I emailed back immediately and I said, "Ooh, so pretty." Very exciting. And I guess we can't say much more than that, but I'm wondering if anyone else has any like little takes or teases about the excitement behind being able to finally put some Trail Society product, both casual and training racewear, out into the world probably pretty soon, like this summer. But you'll get to see it probably on Keely first.
Mm. It's so exciting.
Yeah, think of what I like to run in the most and then put that into an apparel piece.
It's gonna be really cool. We're really
They're
excited
really cool. Yeah, they're
to be working with
super
them.
fun to work with. So
Okay,
yeah.
but it is like so cute that even someone, like me, even though I'm starved of like style. I mean, I hope Brooks isn't listening to this with like the highlighter colors or whatever, but like whatever. I mean, I'm not super feminine like with the clothes that I wear, but like holy moly, I'm like I just want to be like decked out head to toe and just wear this all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
We're all gonna match now.
It's gonna be Excellent. So again, if you would like to go support us and support Rabbit, you can go over and use our 10% off code. We're changing the code every single month. Right now it is Rabbit, TS 10, RABBITTS 10. It's good through the end of April. Go check that out. Let us know if you have any issues with it. Let's slam before we wrap this baby up. Um, Keely, why don't you take the first one and I'll take the second one and Hillary can take the third one.
That sounds great. First one. Hi, ladies. Love, love, love your iron content. I've been chronically low in ferritin, 9 to 14, over the last couple years, despite taking Thorne Ferrosorb consistently and also prioritizing leafy greens and other iron-rich foods in my vegetarian diet. I've been vegetarian for 19 years and I'm 31 now. My doc's advice is always the same: supplement, but I do. I've tried different intervals, 1 times a day, 2 times a day, one every other day. Nothing seems to work. I know this is affecting my running, but it's also affecting my mood. Despite being on Wellbutrin and Lexapro, I still have trouble feeling joy or motivation except relating to running, which brings me the most joy. I just put it together that I also think it affects my libido, which sucks. I'm open to eating meat or fish, but if it's an absorption problem and not an intake problem, then I don't want to stop being veg after so long to no avail. I know y'all aren't doctors yet, but I'd love any input you may have. Yes, not a doctor yet, so this is a caveat, but I feel like we all have opinions on this, and I can take a stab at it at first. Thorne Ferrosorb is a great product, but it is a vegan form of iron. And so sometimes because it's a vegan form of iron, we don't absorb that much iron from it compared to an animal source of iron. And so if you are running a lot and training a lot, your body will break down some of your red blood cells, called hemolysis, and lose some of that iron. And if that's consistent and you're not replacing it at the right rate of that breakdown, your ferritin and your iron stores will always kind of stay in that low realm because you're not giving yourself enough of an iron boost to be able to overcome the loss you're having from running, from all these other things, and from like menstrual cycles, all the ways we lose blood. So I'd say that could be one of the problems. So maybe take a look at your training. You didn't include that in here. So I'd be really interested to know how much you're training, how much vert you're doing, how much downhill you're doing, like how much hemolysis could potentially be going on. And then, you know, if you are open to doing a meat diet, introducing meat into your diet for a month or two and then retesting, I think that'd be a really good, like low risk way to see if it's an absorption problem or an intake problem. And for me, when I was vegetarian for a really long time, I couldn't get my ferritin over 12. I switched to eating meat, and 2 months later, again, N of one. So please just take this as a grain of salt. N of one, my ferritin went up to 25 in about 40 days after it never breaking 12. And so for me, I think my body absorbs meat-based iron better. And again, you're able to absorb more iron from kind of like meat. So it all kind of ties together. So I would try that if you're open. I know you said you might be open to it. So maybe try it for a month or two and see if it changes anything. And also take a good look at your training and see if like if you are running super high volume, could you afford to also decrease the volume a little bit while supplementing or increasing meat intake, and seeing if there's like a nice balance between those two where you're giving yourself a little more time to recover, to build back those red blood cells, and also you're incorporating more iron into your diet that is easier to absorb.
Yeah, I was thinking the exact same thing. Like if you're open to it, adding meat back in and retesting in 8 weeks would be a good way to see if it's maybe the heme versus non-heme iron as part of the loading issue. There's also there's some weird studies about like H. pylori and how like H. pylori actually eats at iron stores a little bit. So I've heard like there is some research out there that could suggest something like that going on, but the meat thing would be a really easy potential test, and you wouldn't have to be if you're vegetarian or vegan too, you like your B12 might be really low. Like there's some other things there that can impact red blood cell production. And so making sure your vitamin D levels are good and your B12 levels are good would be the other kind of, I think, normal nutrition add that I think our dietitians would agree with, because we are not dietitians either, but we've
Yeah.
spent a lot of time with low iron in our lives. So do as we say, not as we do. Okay. I want to read this next one, and it's important. It's in regards to one of our previous episodes around safety and running. And we do think it's really important to share views that differ from our own and just kind of put them out into the world a little bit. So this listener writes in and said, I listened to the most recent pod episode today on my long run, and I was really upset about the app you brought up. It is disappointing to me that companies, apps, tech, and the tech world are profiting off of and exploiting women, non-binary people's vulnerabilities in running. Because let's be real, the app you brought up was designed for people who feel unsafe in new and different places, and that is almost always women, femme, non-binary people, and even more so for people of color. I love the rest of the pod and the ideas you shared about safety and the research around discomfort. I just wish that as a society, our solution was more around addressing the root causes of violence, vulnerability, and security on the run, because this does disproportionately affect women, femme, and people of color, and we should not be financially exploited for something that we do not cause. We could not agree more on that front. The more about the app you talked about, then that's more about the app than you guys talked about. But thank you for sharing and all that you do. And we just want to say too, like the only reason we brought up the app is because it's founded by a woman who was making something to address something that she personally was feeling because she'd been assaulted more than once on a run. And so I think I would feel differently about an app that was like brought to market by men, brought to market by, a different population. But I do think that like it was this woman's idea to address a problem that she saw. But totally, you're right. Like the root cause, we should not have to pay to fix a problem that we don't cause.
Yeah.
But
We could
yeah.
also acknowledge that it is a band-aid, right?
Oh, it's totally a
It's
Band-Aid.
totally a band-aid, but it's like it's good to have a band-aid in the meantime
Right.
until we fix the underlying issue. But yeah, it doesn't solve the underlying issue, which is obviously a bigger deal. So
Yep.
yeah. But thank you for that call out. Thank you for sending us your thoughts. It's really
Yep.
appreciated.
Yeah, definitely.
Last one.
Last one.
Okay. Hello, I'm running Boston and London marathons the same week and decided to have fun with the London and attempt a world record of fastest woman to complete a marathon as a rainbow. I can send a picture.
Please send a picture.
Oh my gosh, that's insane. I've gone from obesity to marathoner, and it's all about joy for the journey while living a healthy lifestyle. Just wanted to share my story. That's amazing.
That's so cool.
I
Please send us
hope
a
you have a
photo of
picture.
you dressed as a rainbow, being the world's fastest rainbow. I'm all about that. Please, please, please send that our way.
Yeah,
Um,
a friend of mine ran Carolyn. She's in the Bay Area. She ran the Big Alta. She was like the fastest tutu. She ran it in.
That's amazing.
that's really, really cool. Okay, we got to wrap it up there. Eat a snack. Give us 5 stars. Tell all your friends. Keep your eye out for cool rabbit stuff coming down the pipeline. And until next time, we'll catch you out on the trails.